working on lighting situation stuff, so bear with me. But today we are working on making some handles for a knife. We've got some purple heart, some walnut, and then maple. I'll be going through, cutting this in half, both of the maple pieces, and on one of them I'll be putting the walnut in the middle, and then the other one I'll be doing the purple heart in the middle, just to kind of give it some a nice accent color. Doing this for Sarah. She has pretty much the same knife I have, just in a different color. She has green. I've got the purple one. This purple was from pretty much I got a bunch of knives for my groomsmen, and I wanted a matching knife with them. And then at the same time I bought Sarah a knife. She was wanting the green, so I got her the green. But I have a matching knife with all my groomsmen from our wedding. But as a wedding present, I gave Sarah the green one because she was wanting the green one. But she thought it would be a good idea to completely redo the handle and with wood. So it has the metal kind of skeleton, and then the purple metal for the handle. So I was just going to replace the purple metal with the wood, but keep the metal skeleton around it. Initially I was going to use some different pieces. I had some offcuts from the coasters that I was going to use. Let me grab them now. I was going to use these pieces, but as I'm lining this up, I was like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. It's too short. So I thought, oh, maybe if I do it diagonally, but then the corners are just barely off and the piece won't entirely fit. You see how that kind of overlaps, and then this corner down here overlaps, and I could not get it in a position where it would fit. So that's why I'm completely redoing this with the maple. I thought about just entirely using just maple, but knowing Sarah, she likes the added colors to things, and thought it would be kind of cool. I was kind of laying this out and drew it out before, and then playing down the pieces. I don't quite have enough walnut to go the whole distance, so I kind of thought about, like, oh, maybe if I offset it either which way, and do like a little small strip here, or like here, or along the back. But then I was kind of thinking of gluing surface, and I would want it more in the middle, so I would have to have it like here, which would only go to half the piece, but it's just easier to rip the entire piece and plane it that way instead of having to inlay it into the piece. So that's why I grabbed the purple heart as well. It's a thinner piece than the walnut, so there will be little difference on either side of the handle. But that's what we've got going. So I'm cutting this in half, and then we'll be gluing the pieces together. Well, first I'll cut this and then plane it down. Because the other pieces are already planed down. I'll just have to plane the edges of these maple pieces, and then add the walnut and the purple heart. So I just cut the pieces. Normally I would set my blade guard further down, but with where my fence is, I have to have it up higher, because if I try to set it down any further, it gets caught on the fence. Normally what you would want to do is, if you're working with a bigger piece, I already have these cut so I don't need the fence anymore. Normally if you have your working piece, you'd want to give the piece and just right below what your fingertip would get into. So my fingertip my fingernail just barely can get under there. It just kind of protects you from going through the piece and, oh no, I cut my finger off. So it kind of prevents any sort of damage from your damage to your fingers. The other kind of rule of thumb is this inlay here, black inlay around the blade. Kind of stick your fingers away from there, or outside of so I wouldn't want to run the piece like this and have my finger there. Obviously this is a thinner piece, so if I was doing like an edge like right about here, I would keep my fingers along the edge here. If I'm working with a lot smaller piece and I need to get up close, that is where I would grab like a push stick and push it through. And then, since I still need pressure along the fence, I would go from the back of behind the blade and have pressure there. Or have a push piece that has a little notch in it that I can, let's just say this had a notch in it, and actually imagine this being one piece, have pressure here against the fence, and then as you're pushing along with the back of that going through. So that is about that for cutting it, and I'll go ahead and glue it, and once I have them glued, give it a little bit of time to actually let the glue cure, and then I'll plane them down and sketch out the handle, draw out the holes for the screws and other things that I need to kind of groove out and drill out and stuff, and then we'll put that handle on Sarah's knife. I will get back to you guys when I have the pieces glued up and planed, and then I'll resume back when I'm sketching out the handle. So I have one up in glue already. One thing I forgot to mention is just keep in mind wood orientation and stuff, because when you're planing, you're wanting to plane the same direction. So with your given piece, it has kind of, think of like hairs on a dog or a cat. As you're wanting to like pet a dog, you're wanting to go down with the hair. If you go up on the hair, it'll kind of pull the hair up. Same thing with wood. Kind of look for the lines in the wood. If it's scooping up, then you don't want to go that direction, so you'd want to flip the piece over and actually plane in the direction of kind of going down with the hair like a dog. So when you're gluing up, you have to kind of look at your piece and see, okay, this piece is going in this direction, so when I'm gluing this piece, I'm wanting it to go the same direction. That will prevent any tear out when you're planing down the piece, because as I'm gluing this together, it's going to be a little offset. It's going to have that little lip on there, This one is more extreme just because I was using a thicker piece but wanting it in that orientation. So I'll probably take a chisel and kind of chisel the initial stuff down, and then I'll go through and plane it. But I have that in the orientation that I was needing in order for me to minimize tear out. I'll try to explain it better on another piece later on. This is such thin material and so thin that it's hard to see what I'm really talking about. I guess I could show it on this piece here. So as you kind of see these lines going in the piece, so I would want to plane in this direction rather than in that direction, because if I plane this direction, I'll get caught on the hairs and want to pull it up. And if I plane this direction, I'm smoothing it down. Hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of hard to picture and hard to understand when you're first learning with wood, but I might have some like diagram stuff that I show later that explains this a little bit more, and actually show the different cuts of wood. If it's I can't even think of the different cuts right now. The way that it's milled, I'll show that in a future video. But right now I'm going to glue this other piece up and then wait for the glue to dry and then get back to planing the pieces and then sketching out the knife handle. I got confused and it did not make sense to me while watching that last part, so I grabbed a image off of Google to try to explain this a little bit better. Hopefully by a picture representation you can understand what I'm meaning a little bit more. A day later, the glue is all dry. Time to kind of plane down the edge of the walnut, or plane down the walnut to the maple, and then we'll plane the entire thing and then sketch out the handles for the knife. I initially grabbed my box plane because I was working with such a small piece, and then realized that using my bigger plane would be a little bit easier. And then I also kept hitting the camera mounts and had to reposition things, so you'll see me kind of struggling with camera angles and a few other things later on. I'm just going to play music in the background as I plane so you're not constantly hearing the plane. I'll get back to you guys once I have these planed down and I have the knife handle sketched out, and then return back to the bandsaw and rough cutting out the shape. Grab my bigger plane. Outside is looking pretty good. Got it pretty flat. Look at that shaving. That's pretty nice shaving. Now to do the other side that has the glue on it. There's the little nub that I was just cutting off. Got a slight low spot right here. The glue is just still sitting there. I might just go ahead and trace the thing out on this side, and then this side goes, the side that has the glue will go on top of the knife. This one will be fun since it has so much on it. Alright, so I can go ahead and just lay this piece out. My other one is back in clamps because of the crack down it. But take this knife apart and then grab the purple piece and lay it out on the wood. Got a organizer tray right next to me that I'm setting the pieces down into, just so I know what part they were. This one screw is the only difference in size. So I have one of the pieces off, so I just pretty much trace the piece onto here. And also with this one, it has a little slot for the spring assist, so I'll have to glue out that with the chisel at some point. There's 2 washers. I was trying to find the other one. Apparently it was stuck to the back of the knife. 2 different sizes, so I was wanting to make sure that I could actually find it. Since the other one has the crack in it, I'm thinking using this one with the one with the crack just because it's a completely flat piece. This one I'll be using this piece for because this one has a little bit stronger structural integrity, even with the other piece having a crack in it. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to make sure that this side is the one that has the glue, deeper spot, since this will be pretty much like that. So I'm wanting this to be on the face of the skeleton. So that's the side that I want the groove out on. I went ahead and chiseled out the groove that I was needing for the spring, with it being the spring assisted knife. The spring will just kind of lay in there, then the skeleton or whatever will line up there, and this little pin here just slides back and forth, and then this is the pin here. That's what kind of moves it back and forth in order to have it spring open. Pretty much just taking my chisel, lining out the outline, and then going back, kind of notching my corners so I have a nice line all the way around, cornered, or shoulder that I can go into. Then once I got a nice outer edge on my piece, just going back. So first kind of making my edges with marking the line, then notching it, then flipping the chisel over, and going at the wood upside down with the chisel. Tater. Tater. Are you saying hi? The reason why you would want to have the chisel flipped over is as you're going this way, it's a lot easy to dig into the piece. If you flip it over, you're running it on a flat surface to go flat across. Think of like this way would be a shovel, you're digging down. This way would be like a snow plow, and you're just plowing it straight or flat along a flat surface. So that's the grooved portion on the one side. The other side doesn't have anything like that. The other side just has just the skeleton and no spring, so I don't need to do a groove on that side. Glued up that crack that was in the other piece. Now just to cut this out, you can kind of see my lines. First we want to make relief cuts, kind of just go at the piece and kind of just cut around the piece, going back and forth, about maybe 1/8 of an inch, 1/32, or yeah, 1/32 of an inch or so to my line. And then I'll go back through and trace my line, kind of a rough trace or cutting around it. Why we would make the relief cuts is as you're going into the blade and making those curves, you don't want to be bending the piece and bend the blade. The relief cuts are helpful because pieces of the wood will be falling off as we're going, so there's no nothing on the back of the blade that's making it pinch or being pulled in any which direction, making the bandsaw blade bend. Need to take the fence off for this. And like I've said before with the safety thing, kind of making sure that this is down about finger so you can't go underneath it. But I can't really see my line that well, so I normally keep it a little bit higher, but still low enough where I won't do too much damage to my finger if my finger were to hit the blade. One thing I should mention is that around curves, you're probably going to want more relief cuts than something a little bit straighter. That just makes it easier as you're going around that bend, that there's not a lot of material that will be bending the blade, if any. So I've got all my cuts done around the piece. Like I mentioned before, making sure like around certain bends that I have more cuts. Did that here as well. There's a little bit more cuts for that little divot. This divot, there's more cuts. And a little bit closer together around this back corner. But everything else can be a little bit more spaced out since this is a little bit straighter of a line. Might want to add maybe like 1 or 2 more cuts there because there is that slight little bend there. So I've got most of it cut out. I've got a little oversized so I can actually file it down to the proper size Obviously, my pencil line might not be 100% correct, so that's why I would want this to be mounted onto the like skeleton piece, and then shape it from there. Next order of business is just drilling the holes, and then working on the other one. But that's starting to look pretty nice. I've got one side of the handle done. Got the walnut one done. Have the holes drilled out. One with that groove on the inside there. That would be this piece here. The spring, if I can find it. The spring would sit in there, and it does the same for this side. The spring sits inside there, along with the other piece would go on top. That little pin slides back and forth as this spring goes around that little semicircle and acts as the spring to open the blade. The blade has that little secondary smaller hole that little raised up pin would sit inside, and then so that would sit there, and then the screw would go inside there, holding it all together once the other side is completed as well. But right now I'm working on the one with the purple heart strip in the middle. This one I already sanded down. I need to put finish on it and sand it down a little bit more. Wet sand it so it's not going to raise the grain when it's in your hand and gets a little wet from just your palms and stuff. So I just finished drilling out the holes and then cleaned up the little inside that was there with the chisel. Now to do the same process I did with this one and cut the slats in it, and then do a rough line around the edge. You saw me do that with this one, so I'm not going to show you, but same process, just taking the piece, going through and making your relief cuts, and then going through and tracing your line, having the pieces fall out. I did not show the process of how I was kind of smoothing the roughness down. What I did, I'm not going to show it with this one since I know that this one will give me a little bit more trouble. Then this one was a little bit easier because walnut was a little bit nicer to work with. This purple heart has been a pain, and I have some tear out stuff that I need to work on. I took the handle and pretty much screwed it on, and then took files and kind of filed down the rough marks first, and then took sandpaper and went back with sandpaper and got it pretty dang close to the file or the shape of what the handle was. Obviously this is not the actually side of the handle that this one is. This one is the outside. But I had have a little bit more material on this little curve here that I was going to work on a little bit more, but I have it pretty close. So after that, it's just wet sanding and then putting the finish on, and then assembly. So I've got it cut out and have it maybe like 1/8 of an inch away from my line. See how there's a lot of material that I still need to remove around the piece that I have screwed on. So I'm just taking sandpaper. This is 80 grit, rougher sandpaper, kind of marking it down. Also taking a file in some spots and getting it close to my line, and then going back with the sandpaper. And taking other like half rounds and rat tail files as well, kind of working in, this is my triangle file, but I can't find my rat tail right now, taking rat tail and kind of working in on the tighter corners, especially like this little curl right there. But it's kind of a slow, painful process of trying to get it perfect, so I wasn't going to waste your guys' time. I was watching a video earlier today. I think it was Four Eyes who said this. I follow a lot of other YouTube channels that are in the woodworking realm of things, and he was saying, yeah, the amount of time that is spent videoing certain things, like I spend 10 minutes sanding, I only show like 30 seconds. But then if I'm pouring epoxy for 15 minutes, and I'll show 10 minutes of me pouring epoxy. So it's just kind of choosing like what to show more of, what people are more interested in. For him, people are more interested in him applying finish and epoxy. So obviously that's one thing I need to learn as I'm doing this YouTube channel, is what is my audience, what is my audience base, and what do they want to see more of? Do they want to, what I think would be painful is sitting through watching me sand something, or would they want to watch me applying finish or actually doing more of the cutting or assembly or whatever? So definitely kind of one of those things that I'm keeping in mind. I can see the chart of what pieces of my videos are watched more than others. And if I start seeing those trends of people are rewatching me assembling, or people are rewatching me applying finish, or people are rewatching the part where I'm doing the cuts, maybe I adapt and show more footage of me doing cuts rather than sanding. So that's just an update on the knife. I've got it cut out for the most part. I just need to shape it. I still need to, I have it wetted down so the grain raised. I just need to sand it down after the grain got raised to 220, and then apply the first coat of finish, sand it with about like 600 grit, and then put another coat of finish on it, on both of these once I have this. I was going to wait to sand it after wet sanding it until I get this one done and actually have this one wet and fully dry, and then sand it. So I finished shaping them and sanding them and wet sanding, and so they're now ready to put finish on. We got half denatured alcohol, and then half can't think of what it's called right now. Half shellac, half denatured alcohol. That's what I normally use. Sometimes I'll do 1 to 2. I'll do 1 part shellac and 2 part denatured alcohol, depending on if I want it to flash off with the alcohol a little bit faster or have a little bit more liquidy of a finish. But you can go ahead and put finish on these and then get it assembled. Here, kind of just wanted to brush it with the grain. It flashes off in about 15 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds. It's gonna dry. Pardon me. Kind of a little bit tacky, but dry to the touch. See that kind of shine to it versus the dull, especially in the walnut there. The end grain will soak up a lot more than the rest of the wood, so you might want to apply a little bit more on the end grain. Doing very light coats. The inside I dipped a little bit more just to kind of get it soaked in a little bit. Every 3 coats or so, that's when I would sand it, like 600, 800. I can't remember what sandpaper I have, but a higher grit. And then do about 9 or 12 coats. So doing this about putting three coats on, then sanding it, 3 coats, sand it, do 3 times, or 3 times, 4 times to make it 12 coats that you're putting on. And after you put the 3 coats on, wait about 10 minutes or so to actually let the shellac harden, and then you would sand at the higher grit. Kind of repetitive. I'll just show you guys this, and then I'll put the other coats on. And with the shellac and the denatured alcohol, there is a possibility of it kind of combusting, so whenever you're done with your rag, and if it's folded up, to unfold it and lay it flat. Not on wood piece. I currently have it on a wood piece, but have it on like concrete or something metal, something that wouldn't catch fire. That's about it, other than putting the more cuts on it and then assembling it. I just finished putting the knife all back together. Done with it. Put the rest of the finish on, sanded it, and put the finish on and put it together. Had to countersink the screws a lot more than what I expected, just because how thick the wood is. This project kicked my butt. I had a bunch of things I had to fix along the way. The pieces were splitting here and there, and I had to like re-glue it and then replane it and re-glue it and replane it, and drilling out all the holes, trying to make the holes the proper size and lined up properly. And there was just so many fine-tuning stuff that I was just dealing with along the way. But I'm pretty happy with what I've got here, with it being my first knife handle. There's still some little work I could do to make the notch line it into those grooves a little bit nicer. And I could probably inset or set that in a little bit more. Probably need to back that screw off. It's kind of tight right now, but the spring works. It doesn't open all the way. I need to do a little bit more adjusting to it, but hit the camera. But it opens most of the way, and then have to kind of just click it into place. I think part of that is I need to sand down the little notch, because I think it's getting caught somewhere here, and then also I might need to adjust this screw to loosen it up a little bit so it's not as tight, and also try to figure out a way to lubricate the spring on the inside of the wood. But it's working the way that I wanted it to, for the most part. I mean, it's a knife, so as long as I can use the knife and it works. So this is the walnut side, and this is a purple heart. Put the handle on here, but still looks pretty nice. I was using one continuous board for the maple, and my thickness was kind of tapering as I went. I had my fence lined up in a really weird way where it wasn't completely 90 degrees. So I ended up kind of like a piece like this where it's really thin on one part and then it just gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker. It was obviously, this is a very extreme version of this, but that is the reason why this side is thicker than that. And that's probably why I had to sink those screws in a lot more. But I've had fun doing this. It just took a lot longer because I had to fine tune all the screw holes. I had to fine tune and sand down all those curves and stuff. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there. I'll probably need to cinch down the screws a little bit more, but it's working as a knife. So kind of a fun side project that I had. Like I said, this was for Sarah, but I kind of talked it over with Sarah, and she said that I could just put this on my knife, which is what I did, and then I'll just make her a completely new knife. She was wanting more of a fixed blade knife with the handle. Now for the fun part, B-roll. Comment down below whether you like the purple heart or walnut. I want to see percentage-wise what people like more. It would mean a lot to me if you considered subscribing and follow my Instagram page at Bullfrog Woodworking Edge.